Oh hey, I'm Marc, an art teacher, a professional artist, and in this week's video, we're going to be talking about the job of a concept artist. So, if this is a job that you've ever been interested in, you'll want to keep watching this. Let's get started. Alright, so if the idea of possibly becoming a concept artist has been floating in your head and you've been looking for more info on that career path, good on you. You've found your way to the right channel. Just like when I was younger wondering about the same thing, there still isn't much information on the topic out there, but as someone who's had a long career doing concept for many years, hopefully the next couple minutes will help answer a lot of your questions and very likely point out some things that you might not have even considered yet. Let's get it. There's 4 aspects in particular that I want to cover today. A lot of it is stuff that I often discuss with my students during our feedback sessions, so I've tried to categorize everything into a short video, going over first what the job is like, what it's all about. Then I'll talk about the lifestyle, things to consider if you choose this path. Then, talking about path, I'll go over the actual career path you should be on or should jump on to turn concept art from an interest and into a job. And then finally, I'll go over a couple of portfolio tips as someone who's sat in many applicants' job interviews during my time at Blizzard Entertainment. Tips that should help beat your competition for that coveted concept artist seat. I'm most familiar about the gaming and film industry, so this is what I'll be referring to here. And then, well, meanwhile in the background, I'll be playing this time-lapse video. So first, what's a concept artist? What do we do exactly? Concept art is very different from what an illustrator would do on a daily basis, for example. Illustrators work on conveying emotions, feelings. It's the kind of art that is often used to sell something, like promotional art. The job of a concept artist, however, is to convey ideas. For example, in a game studio, the designers might come to you with an idea for a new character, or character variations, a new faction, a new weapon, final boss of a game, whatever. Your job is to take those words, understand what he or she wants, and draw something cool to represent it. The art then is not meant to sell a product, it's not meant to look amazing and polished. The main purpose is to convey the idea as best as possible. Of course, it's nice when the art is good, but the best concept artists are not necessarily the best technical artists. They're just very creative, have a lot of cool ideas. It's all about the ideas. So yeah, you can be a great concept artist and a not so good illustrator, just like illustrators can be great at what they do and kind of suck at concept art. You can do both, of course, with enough experience, but usually speaking, the job is completely different. And as an artist, you'll have to choose one path or the other, or risk spreading yourself too thin and not being particularly good at either. Now, I feel like this distinction is not really clear for most people, based on the many, portfolios that I've seen over the years. But in reality, it's more like looking at the path of a brain doctor or a heart doctor. Both medical doctors, but vastly different career paths. As a concept artist, most of the day you'll be drawing, so if you're into that, the job is particularly fun. You'll typically interact with the game designers, the people that have the ideas, and your art lead and or art director to make sure that what you do is consistent with the rest of the team's work, which of course might mean changing your style to fit the style of the project you're on. It's all about teamwork. Alright, now that the job of a concept artist is a little bit more clear, specifically the distinction between concept art and illustration, let me tell you about a few things that you should really consider if this is a career that you had in mind. I'm sure many of you have seen, news left and right about artist layoffs over time and just how hard it is to make it as a concept artist. So let's get in there and clarify a few things about the industry. The first thing, and most important in my mind, is the fact that this is a growing industry. That market is growing at an average like 9 to 10% every year, and that's averaging mobile games, PC and console games together. So most game studios will have a handful of concept artists working on any given project, and that is going to keep growing with time. And usually split between character and environment concept artists, but you typically wear more hats in smaller teams and do more specialized art in bigger teams. Now, as a concept artist, you have a few choices of workspaces. In the US, that workspace is probably your home right now in the times of the pandemic. But in normal times, you'll be looking at indie studios, often like smaller teams, privately funded or crowd-funded, or bigger AAA studios, usually funded by investors and shareholders. Then you'll also have outsourcing studios whose main clients will be the indie studios and the AAA studios. And then you could also work freelance basically acting as a one-man outsourcing studio. The main thing to keep in mind here is that your career will likely change a lot through its course. It's unusual for most artists to spend more than a few years in a given position, and there's a lot of moving around in the industry. For that reason, it's also likely that you'll have to physically move to where the work is. In my case, I had a job in Montreal, Canada, before being approached by Blizzard, and of course, I had to relocate to a different country to get the job, which I did. That's very common, you know, bye-bye family, bye-bye girlfriend, I'm moving to California. To give you an idea from, the original team that I was on while we were developing the world of Overwatch, almost every artist works elsewhere now. Of course, how much you have to move initially depends on, where you're born, given that the main hubs for that line of work are primarily located here in California, or more broadly on the west coast of the US, also in Montreal, Canada, for a lot of game companies, and Vancouver for VFX, and then in Northern Europe / England. We shouldn't also forget about Japan, Korea, and now China that are big markets with lots of jobs, but as a Westerner that might seem a little bit more out of reach. Anyways, for an updated list of game studios around the world, check out a website called gamedevmap.com. I feel like every chance I get I plug this website. I have nothing to do with them, but it's a very helpful resource, so I'll link it down below. Go check it out. Now, of course, let's talk about overtime and layoffs. The fun stuff. So overtime, or crunch time like we call it, is something that artists have always dealt with so far. Most studios will require it from their artists, and it just sucks. It's typically towards the end of a production in a game, but in the worst case, it'll be almost all year round. It's nice when you're compensated for it at least, but that's definitely not a given in most studios, so yeah, just keep in mind that it will likely be part of your job unless you're very lucky, or unless things change in the future. And then there's the layoffs. Yay, thankfully. It's never happened to me, but man, a lot of my friends had to go through this, and it's definitely one of the worst parts about the industry. It's all too common for a team to blow up in size right before the launch of a game, or during the busiest parts of pre-prod in films, and then for the bulk of the team to just be laid off once the game ships. Of course, I'd advise to stay away from teams that have a track record of doing that, but from what I've seen, it's never really a pattern, and it kind of comes out of nowhere. And then yeah, sometimes you just gotta take the gig and live with the risk. But yeah, relatively speaking, I just want to point out that most companies try not to go down that route, but it does happen far too often, and yeah, it just sucks. All in all though, I really enjoy my career in games. The decade that I spent, doing that as a job was so fun, man. It's definitely not for everyone though. You gotta always be hungry and always be improving to stay relevant. But I think that's normal for a skill that is so easily accessible to everyone. I always compare it to competing as an athlete. If you stop practicing and improving, you're kind of on your way out. If you keep pushing, sky's the limit. Now, talking about career path, let's take a look at the steps that you would need to take to land a job as a concept artist. First things first, pick a path, character or environment art. You can only pick one. You can expand later, of course, when you get a job, but if the goal is to land a job, get there ASAP by focusing your efforts effectively. Whichever you end up favoring though, dive deep into the relevant fundamentals. If you're all about environment art, you can kind of forget anatomy for now. It's not going to serve you that well. Also, learn from others that have experience related to your goal and start collecting all kinds of references to use for your art. Then, document as much of the process on social media to start getting visibility. What people love to see on social media is not just good art. It's an artist that starts off so-so, not so good, but quickly gets better. That's exciting to follow. That's motivating to people, so they'll keep an eye on you. When you get enough eyes on you, opportunities come also. If you don't upload much though, don't show much progress. How is that interesting for anyone? It's not. It's easy to get into art, so a lot of people try. It's not like racing, for example, where only a few wealthy people have the means to participate. Since literally anybody can start drawing, you have to push harder than everybody else. Practice more, party less. It's an amazing job when you get it. I'd argue making art for a living is the best job ever. But there is a social cost to pay to get there, and it's really important to understand that. Once again, artists are like athletes. You gotta keep hitting the gym, the track, the pool, whatever it is to stay in better shape than others. Same here. If you can show significant growth over a period of a few years, creating content others seem to enjoy also, then you'll probably do great as a concept artist. I mentioned social media since concept art is all about selling an idea, and there's no better way to test your ideas than by having as many people as possible see and judge them. If you never get any kind of feedback, or only feedback, from your immediate family, your friends, there's not much value in that, unfortunately. Your job one day might be to amaze gamers or movie lovers, so you have to get good at creating concepts that the general public will enjoy, not just yourself and your family. Don't underestimate the value of your online presence. Think of it as doing market research. And then finally, very quickly, my main portfolio tips for someone thinking about going into any field of art would be to focus on content that will take you there, as in concept art. If all you have in your portfolio are portraits, that's not gonna cut it. You want to show off the relevant skills, artworks that will show the potential employer that if they were to hire you, you'd be as plug and play as possible. Time is money, so if it looks like you'll need a lot of training, that's not as interesting to them. Not as interesting as someone who's ready to go, someone they know they'll be able to count on right away to contribute to their project. In your portfolio, include art that could potentially have been made for the studios that you're, interested in working at. And make sure most of it is relevant. Throughout the years, I've seen so many applicants show up at Blizzard, with a portfolio that looks like they want a job on Call of Duty instead, or didn't know much about the games we made at all, so their portfolio had nothing to show us that they'd be able to actually do the job. Another quick tip, once again, concept art is all about conveying cool ideas in the best way possible. So while it's fine to do fan art for yourself, don't include that stuff in your portfolio since it doesn't showcase any important skills for the job. Instead, it should be a lot of characters and creatures, concept art if you prefer to go the character concept art route, or more environments, props, concept art pieces if you prefer that specialization. Even though the actual work won't need to be as polished, it's also good to spend some extra time, not only create cool concepts others will be able to enjoy, but push the polish beyond what is needed for the job, and just to make sure that you stand out as much as possible, basically. Keep updating your portfolio often, just like your social media accounts, and keep pushing. Always do that, and you should eventually have a career that you absolutely love. It takes a lot of hard work, like anything worth getting, but it all pays off when you finally get to your goal. And then if you don't know just how good you need to get, find the studio that you want to work at, or like a few of them, and then find the portfolios of some of their more junior artists maybe to gauge their level compared to yours. You should be at least as good to have a serious shot. So if a concept artist is what you aspire to be one day, or maybe you're almost there, but you feel that your growth is slow or flatlining, take a look at my full art education program that I creatively called ARTSCHOOL for Digital Artists. I have no doubt it'll help you reach your goal faster. Link in the description. And that's going to wrap it up today. If you liked the video, please give it a big thumbs up and share it with someone you feel might benefit from hearing this information. Remember, artists can make really, really big salaries, and it's almost always directly correlated to how good you are. So think of every drawing that you make as an increase in your future salary. How good can you get?